Not yet. Yeah, of course, dude. Man, you come all the way up here to hang out, bro.
What a sweet offer.
You know about the therapeutic house?
Yeah, I'm
You gotta get in there for like 20 seconds with that
least
maximum
15.
therapeutic dose of oxytocin. You know what I'm talking about?
At least 15.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it's good to see you, man.
See you. Hi.
You're gonna be like,
Hey, I'm Kara.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
you're gonna be a big help to me pretty soon. You know what I mean?
Neat.
I'm depending on you to be the fixer of my marriage.
You have an armpit tag.
Oh, do I?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yesterday, I wore my sweater inside out all day. I had very. No, that's it.
Yesterday.
That's it.
Lift your arm back up. Yeah, not this one.
Oh yeah, the little.
Only for the show.
Yeah, brain spotting is.
That has
Did you like getting brain spotted?
I did, but man, I loved it, but I'm like, from the demos,
Demos are wild.
I was just like, it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was like the biggest takeaway for me is like when I'm watching it, I'm like, because I feel like I'm really good in awkward silence.
Oh yeah.
Like I feel I can ride that,
Yeah.
but that's a whole different level.
But do you see how, like,
When you get to
when
the-
you're in that space, brain spotting aside, you feel like energy shifts.
So
You like it feels like we're like, I don't know. It's such a different space.
We are live.
Okay, cool. That's good.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
when they go, it's funny because I look like where I know I would pull all back
Let's do mic checks.
is where the magic happens. So that's what I learned from that. 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Did they teach you the weight and waste acronyms?
Maybe I don't
Weight
remember it.
is why am I talking, and waste is why am I still talking? Which are two of my favorite acronyms.
No, that makes really good sense. It's a whole. It's like I had to do a lot of unlearning through that little training course for real.
That's what I was saying. I was like, it's worth it.
If anything, it's just
Mic check, mic check. Hello. How we sounding there? Are we're live? 1 2 1 2 1 2.
say what you want to.
right.
1 2 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Good.
1 2 3. Okay. Cool.
All right.
Nice. I like your shoes, David.
Thank you. I break them out when I come to special places.
All right,
Try to
we're
keep
waiting
'em
for the
clean.
Go ahead. From the
Is it,
screen.
is Leslie's working it from home? Respect. Yeah. Oh, let me get the outline.
Mine? Okay, go ahead. Handle it, Holmes.
I like that. I like that, Zach.
That's I do
He's
too.
be-
That's
he's
what I
being-
like.
He's being a
taking
freaking
control.
producer right there, right? Respect.
Oh, maybe. Are we?
You know what really sucks is that we got to do the extra or whatever it takes to like hang out because we reach out.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I gotta make a little bit of better effort to
Well,
making
what's
that
nice
happen because we're
is-
close. We're really
yeah.
not far from each other, and our
Yeah.
days kind of work out to where we can hang out, have a cup of coffee, get lunch, or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well,
we need that.
Fridays, I can be anywhere. They're kind of
Yeah.
like work from home, kind of.
Me too.
I didn't know you had so many kids.
6.
I
All
didn't
girls.
know. I just knew about 2 of them.
Yeah.
That's
28,
awesome.
28 to 8.
That's the whole span of human growth and development. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I
Wes
get along
came
with
in
him
the
for the most part.
lobby and no like previous thought or anything. He was like, "Did you know David has so many kids?" I was like, "I actually didn't."
Yeah, man. And I get
That's
along
cool.
with him
That's
for
awesome.
the most part.
All right.
Get-togethers are kind of
Mic check. 1 2 1 2 3.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
1 2 1 2 1 2. Cool. I know I'm kind of quiet. I try to.
Want some of my black and tan monster mix?
It's not bad.
You like it?
Yeah.
It's sweet, but it was good.
Yeah. Tastes slightly like meth, which is nice. Methology. That's meth-
That's really messed up. I'm really messed up.
Methological. That's it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Raleigh calls this the Much More Show.
Nice.
I love it.
There it
Yeah.
is. There it is.
I like Much More Show too.
I like
like
the
that
Much
too.
More Show. Yeah.
Yeah.
All good on audio, but yours could be a little higher. Yeah, it could be a little higher.
Where are we going to be live at? YouTube?
YouTube. Yeah. All right.
Bring it in, my bro.
Every time you put these lights on me, I get nervous and my ears burn.
Oh, say word.
Yours too? Yeah.
Your ears burn. They get red?
I don't think
Tingly?
so. Just hot.
Oh, that's exciting.
You have nothing to worry about.
Thank you, God, for the opportunity to gather. Thank you for the means to do it, the place to do it in. And we just surrender this time to your care and control and trust that whatever we say and do will be helpful to someone along the line, down the line. And grateful that there is no separation between us and you. And may we become more aware of that as we continue to live and grow. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. We good? I feel like a hard shift. Like I'm shifting into this
Locked
mode.
in.
Oh, yeah. It's about to go down. That's what's happening.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Most High Show. I'm your host, Christian, and joining me in the two seats of decadent service
Yes.
are David Cleope
What up?
and Kara
Morrissey.
Yes. Yes.
Some places it says Morrissey when I look you up, and then some places it says Morris. So I've never knew
impossible.
for sure.
I think it's just two different people.
Two different people. Yes. Well, David thinks white people all look alike, so mild racism, but yeah. And we also have an in-studio audience. Welcome to the Most
thank
High
you,
Show.
folks.
Thank you for being here. My man Zach is on the ones and twos, faithful servant, and Leslie's doing quality control from the cribbo.
I see growth in Zach every time I come through here.
That's right.
He's moving and grooving like a producer.
That's
More,
right.
He's sunk in there. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
I see it.
Today he took charge.
Yeah,
He said, "Wait a
I'm
minute,
feeling that.
I don't like this shot,"
Yeah,
and we
Gotta
like
move it
that.
over.
We like that.
I do. I love that.
Yeah. And today's topic is something that all of us want to talk about. Not really. Who wants to do this? Who wants to heal what you? Who wants to heal what you feel?
I know.
You know.
I want to be
You want to sit
You
down?
want to say,
Yeah, come sit down. Come sit down.
sit down, Riley?
All right.
The
Perfect.
last time you sat with me, you fell asleep.
Do you remember that, Raleigh? Do you remember
You
falling
fell
asleep?
asleep on my shoulder right here the last time.
I have a few jokes for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell us.
Like,
Who's there?
podcast.
Podcast too.
We're on a podcast of the Most High Show.
That's a good joke. That's a good joke.
Yes. Freestyling it.
I like that.
Crowd work, baby. Yeah. You cannot heal what you don't feel.
You cannot heal what you don't feel.
You can't.
That's right.
Or can you?
Or can you?
So we're inundated with
Ooh,
books,
that's a good
seminars,
question.
systems, and drive-by psychology. I like that little term. Yeah, all aimed at helping us feel better. So I looked on Amazon for self-help books, and it returned a result of 70,000 different books
No, wait a minute. Hold on. Say that again. Now you looked up
on Amazon.
Right.
Yep, I put self-help book,
Okay.
and the search results was 70,000 different books.
It's
And
an
some of the
industry.
titles are Master Your Emotions.
Master your emotions.
That's possible. Make Your Bed.
Make your bed.
Less likely.
That's likely.
The Power of Positive Thinking.
The power of positive thinking.
Yes.
12 Rules for Life.
12
Yeah.
rules for life.
That's Mitchell's favorite. The Power of Self-Discipline.
The power of self-discipline.
And 45-Day Self-Improvement Handbook.
And 45-day self-improvement handbook.
Thank
I read all of these.
You did. It's
No, I
evident.
read none of these.
It's obvious you've read these.
But I do read.
Yes, you've read.
I feel like these are some Jordan Peterson.
One of them is for sure.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's interesting, right? There's this constant thing that we need to be improving. Like we're not okay where we're at, so we got to be constantly.
Me too.
You feel like? Are you improving, Raleigh?
Yes.
Good
Yeah.
for you, man.
What have you been working on?
Lots of stuff like quieting my voice.
Nice.
I love your voice.
Yeah.
I like when you talk. What else have you been working on?
Not stimming or screaming or yelling.
Oh, okay.
How's he doing with that, Mitchell? Yeah. Are you picking him up any? Is that his voice? Okay, great.
Cool.
Cool. Which I guess is cool, right? Like we want to get better and we want to heal.
I want to heal it eventually.
Yes, eventually. But why do you think that we got 70,000 books aimed at this?
I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting at 8111 with Mitchell. I gathered the women to woo in the sobriety prayer, which reads as follows. Our Father, Lord in heaven, hallowed be my name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us all trespassers, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever, ever. Amen.
Amen.
I
Amen.
love that, dude. That's
Amen.
great, man.
That
Amen.
prayer never
That's
gets
one of my
old.
favorites.
That's a good one.
Trademark.
Good one. Three, my man.
Who said that?
Me, and that's all the women in it.
Okay. Did he go to the women's meeting? Sometimes he goes to the women's meeting.
That's so good.
Okay.
That's so good, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I like, if you see 70,000 subscriptions, that means there's a ton of people trying to get better, right?
They're not like me.
Yeah.
Maybe I might appear on another show podcast of the much more most high show someday.
Yeah.
You're on it now, man.
But when I leave with all of you, I hope we can make another podcast.
Yeah, round 2.
Round two.
Too.
Round three.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, let me do that. Come closer over here, Riley, so they can hear you better.
I'm going to over there, you David,
There you
so
go.
they can hear us better.
That's right.
There we go.
That's right.
There we go.
So, I guess there's nothing wrong with wanting to improve, get better.
I agree.
Yeah. This-
Madam, can you pick up your soda a little bit? Yeah, you want me to hold it? Yes,
I can do that.
Madam.
madam.
Have you ever been called madam? This is the first
I've been
time.
called a lot of things, but never madam.
That's got caffeine in it.
That's a lot of caffeine in it, Riley. You're gonna be up for a minute. That's a strong one.
Not too strong, I hope.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Not
Is it
much.
good?
Was it good? Okay, he's drinking.
Yeah. He chased it.
He had to chase it.
My.
Raleigh, what's the best thing about life?
My stepmother and I have a funky life.
A funky life.
Yeah.
What's funky about it?
We stay home together, go out together, and do fun things together.
Yeah.
You do a lot of fun things, man.
I
You
agree.
do. You have a lot of fun. I love seeing.
I have a song for you, lady.
Okay, I'm ready.
You're downgraded to lady.
You can dance, you can jive, I'm having the time of your life. Oh, that girl was dancing, the dancing queen.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Woo!
That was awesome.
That's pretty awesome, huh?
I don't know if I've ever had someone sing directly to me. That was awesome.
Was
Thank
he
you for
making eye
that.
contact the whole time?
That was awesome, wasn't it? Whoop! Did you get that into your ear?
No, we don't have headphones on. He got it. He got it. Zach got it.
Zach heard that for sure.
Raleigh, who else do you do fun things with?
Mitchell.
What's the funnest thing you've done with Mitchell?
He took me to Palmetto for a sleepover, and now he's bringing me back here, back home to my stepmother. Ooh, baby!
You're on one today, Raleigh.
It's the Java monster.
That's a monster! Ah!
Yeah,
Got it?
we got it. Yeah. Yeah. What else, Raleigh? Tell us what else is going on.
What else is happening with you?
Mamie might take me out to a special camp, called Camp Disney. Maybe we'll go there by a bus. You might bring your family along, right, Mitchell? Correct. Oh, donkey! South Ponte Vedra, Florida.
Oh, nice.
Do you ride roller coasters?
Yes, sometimes. But I want to ride rides and do shopping and all kinds of fun things with my stepmother. Remember
awesome,
what happened when I went out with just people? I screamed when I rode the rides. Then, what happened next is a policeman handcuffed me behind my back with handcuffs and took me to a hospital. As I laid on my gurney, I told a doctor to call my stepmother. When she came, she gave me a drive back to Judge People, where I made a thorough apology to him. Then, did you know what happened? She whipped through their office like a buzzsaw, like this.
Really?
Really?
Gave him the business. Huh?
Yeah.
Good for her.
Raleigh, can you take some more photos for us while we're doing this?
Later.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I still want to be a friend on this show.
You are a
Then
friend.
I have,
You're like family on this show.
yeah.
All right?
Hey, donkey. Dave, I think it's almost time for us to finish this podcast.
We're
and
about there.
go.
Yes.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Raleigh.
Riley, that was great, dude.
Good job. Thank you, bro.
And for Riley
Highlight of the show. Highlight of the show.
Yeah. That, did you get it on highlight?
We're going to clip that.
We better.
Yeah.
That was epic.
You're going to be the star of this one. Thank you.
Dude, the last time, it's like he was slept right here, right? And he wasn't in the shot at all. So we were like having this podcast and Riley was sleeping right here. Then like right in the middle of, he just like, so then the shot goes back to me and I'm just
Honestly,
talking
yeah.
and he's like sleeping. I was like, yeah, you know, I think that's a good
Yeah.
idea, you know?
Every single one of those side hugs looked so comfy.
Yeah.
yeah. That's awesome.
What?
All right.
That's got something to do with the show and the topic. I don't know what.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, he answered it
Yeah.
amazingly. Like he wants to try to get better, and he's actively doing the things to try to better himself. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, so he's working on himself. So that kind of confirms, the people are really trying to work to better themselves nowadays.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
there's these endless subscriptions of how to do that. Now, how
Yeah.
good any of them are remains to be seen.
I think
Right?
too, there's also like, I was thinking about how I love just the openness to be like, you know what, I want to sing you a song. Like sometimes we
Oh,
think
that's so
about,
sweet,
we
man.
think we overthink stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, you want to do something to cheer somebody else up, and you overthink it till you don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like, man, that made my day.
if you
Yeah.
see Riley, it's like, it's just natural bravery that I don't have.
Yeah.
It's just he just does it.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, might feel uncomfortable to sing a song to somebody like that. That was so good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
There's something in that.
Well, I think there's like there's a sense of being with Raleigh. He is, and that's it, right?
That's it, right?
It's kind of like like a child is just a child, right?
Innocence,
Yeah.
you know.
And the thing about self-help though is like you do all these things to improve to get to this level, but you never really arrive at the thing. And so it's come up a couple times, like in conversations and just in my own work, and then like on social media about this, like actually having to feel the feeling and go through the emotion or whatever the uncomfortability is, rather than immediately trying to fix it. And I think a lot of these self-help books are like, let's show you how to get out of this thing that you're not happy with.
Right.
And so we never pause to think, well, what is this? What is this thing, and what does it have to teach me? I think that's kind of like the heart of like the conversation a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and even in saying that, when you sent me the outline, I was thinking about if you don't change your orientation to how you view suffering and adversity and seasons that are really rough, then of course looking at it is going to be brutal. If you aren't in a posture where you're saying, why has this like come into my life? What am I learning here? And sit with it with kind of a more openness. If it hits and you're just immediately tangled in it, then of course it's like worth avoiding because you can wrestle with it, wrestle with it. So there's some kind of spiritual posture shift that happens before being able to sit and feel it even matters. If you're just sitting and like wrestling with it in a way that's like all ego and control, then I think it's not really feeling it. It's almost like spiraling more into the suffering. I don't know if there's a better way to say that.
I think that's what that saying kind of means. You can't heal what you don't feel.
Yeah.
Kind of explains that.
Well, I think in my experience, I can look like I healed,
Yeah.
but I really just buried it or put ego or coping mechanisms on top of it. And I feel like some stuff like this is like 2.0. Because I feel like when somebody, especially this conversation, because I think like for somebody who's just beginning a journey of transformation and change, right? They have old behaviors or lifestyle that's harming them or harming other people, and they want to change that. It's like, do you feel like some just healthy coping mechanisms are better than unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? With that,
Yeah, that's how like if somebody just comes in and like wants you to help them with something, right? The first thing, I mean, to tell them to like, it's kind of like that saying is saying you have to process this. You have to sit in it. You have to marinate in it and deal with it and let it go through you to really know what it is to actually start healing, right? That's
but would
what
you
the
say
saying
that to
is.
somebody who's
No,
just starting?
Absolutely not. So what usually happens is you come in and you are promoting coping mechanisms to help deal with it. Like I meet, how are you doing? I'm really suffering this. Well, let's go through some things that would help you, while you're feeling like that. And ultimately, it's like, how can we deflect this? How can we get you better?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that making sense? So, but it is a 2.0 because after the process, now when you get to one aspect, you're dealing with it, right? And then the next level is, doing it, going through it, and actually getting to that process piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That
cool with that? Does that
timing.
make sense?
Yeah, I think there's a timing to it.
Yeah.
I was talking to my dad about that yesterday. He specialized in doing critical incident debriefings for first responders and things like that. He was a fireman for a long time, but he was saying that when you're doing debriefings with people, you have at the end of incident, which is just like, hey, are you good? Are you safe? Taking stock. And then 3 days later, you're like, how are you really? And then 3 weeks later is like, what happened? Can we compare notes? Really go through it. And then 3 months later, there's kind of an existential piece, which is like, how does this integrate into my life? And when he was talking about that, I was kind of putting it almost in like war terms, like the part of the battle when you're just running and you can't really make it better, but you can't stop. You just have to make it not worse.
Right.
And you're just going, and then there's a moment where it's like in the movie they fall over and it's like, where am I bleeding? And like stopping that. But then you really don't process what happened until you're back in this like solid place.
Yeah.
But I think what I see a lot is people come in like while they're still bleeding and they're like, what does this mean for my life? It's like, well, okay, first is kind of the how do we get back to
Stop the bleeding.
stability?
Yeah.
Because you can't really, until that happens, you can't. Or you get the people that are like, I'm not bleeding. You're like, you're definitely bleeding.
Dude, you're a mess. That's a
definitely-
massacre.
yeah. And they're like, I'm like, that didn't happen. You're like, it definitely did.
Yeah. Well, it's
That's
kinda
all
like,
part of the process too.
like
Yeah.
triage. Like when somebody is wounded, the triage is like, let's first stop immediate bleeding and immediate like organ failure and these kind of things.
Right.
And then once we get you stable and you get to a place where you're healthy enough, then we look at what are the surgical options or long-term things, because like someone who just got, unless they absolutely have to like do surgery, but that's, mostly it's usually like a triage. Yeah.
It's just like, when you look at health and wellness, right? And somebody comes to you and they're a little bit in distress and they're like overthinking things, critical negative thinking, right? And you have like this hour to sit with them and talk with them, right? You're gonna like talk about, exercise. You're gonna talk about, what's your diet, what's your daily routine, and you're gonna. Yeah.
Is that what you do? You tell them, what are you exercising? Do you drink enough water?
Well,
I went to the doctor once, and she's like, yeah, just drink more water. And I was like, bitch, you went to medical school? And this is your answer? Drink fucking water?
But you explain it like
I'm
this.
depressed.
Yeah, but you explain it like
and
this.
dehydrated.
Yeah.
And dehydrated, apparently.
It's both.
But the reason why you introduce these things to them, because it's like you are trying to put in healthy coping mechanism to help them, that helps them deal with their daily life.
To stabilize.
Yeah, to stabilize. It's like I have this overthinking. Well, when your heart rate's up and you start breathing a little bit faster, you're going to realize there's nothing else that's going to be on your mind when you're going through that, right? But what makes that not like a healing? It's part of a healing process, but it's not the healing process, because when people are like in distress and they're dealing with like being overwhelmed from anxiety or just being so low because they're like it's hard for them to get out of bed because they're depressed. Is what happens is when that like let's say I say, hey, get on the treadmill for 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, right? That's a cope. You're coping with what you're going through. You're doing something healthy. You're getting your heart rate up. You're doing all these things, right? But that stuff comes crashing back on you when you're like alone, getting ready to go to sleep or something like that. It just hits you like a wave, and it's all right back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So you're deflecting a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To get them through a certain part of their day. But when they come back and see you next week, it's because of those moments when they're all alone and they're reflecting on the shit that makes you sad and hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know?
What are you thinking? Say
Well,
what you're thinking.
Yeah. Well, first I was just thinking about your Zens, and and then no,
I got like
no,
6
I
more
don't know.
cans
I
if you
mean,
want some.
Yeah.
whenever I know I've said this before, but I really think about them all the time. I flip through these images in my mind of just all of the people that I've met that were just doing the best that they could with what they've had, and like the people that are reading a self-help book and it's like kind of in secret, you know, and they're not even talking about it, or you know, the people that are like really making giant life changes, but all that in between. And I always, whenever we're talking about people working on themselves, I always think about when I was at Florida State, I got to work at a state hospital, and it was these guys that, you know, are going to be there for the rest of their lives, and they're coming to me who, like, what do I know about being incarcerated for the rest of my life? And they're like, how do I make my life better? Like, on this, with these,
This is what I got.
these circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, and like checking out books from the library and all that stuff, and that spirit of wanting to grow and expand and make good with circumstances, always I come back to that before everything else. 'Cause there's so much information, but I always just think about the spirit that's seeking that information.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like the people that are searching for those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like that's like we're being careful to talk about it because depending on where you're at in the journey, right?
Yeah.
You know, it is like, you know, just stop smoking crack, okay? Don't care how you feel. Let's just get that thing out
Right.
there, right?
Yeah.
You can, and then the emotions come, and it's like, okay, well, let's just figure out how to just exist and get a job and not commit crimes.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll get to the feelings, like, you know.
No, there is steps, because I mean you got to stop smoking crack.
Let's
First.
establish that.
Initially, we're not
Yeah.
going to be able to do anything unless the crack smoking stops. Okay, we got to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach said, especially on spiritual Sundays. Yes.
Yeah.
At least take a pause on Sunday.
Now you quit smoking crack. We're going somewhere.
We got somewhere
We're
to look.
we're
We
in
can work
motion.
with something.
We're in motion here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For real. I mean, that one that has to stop first. So there is
Well,
a process.
I guess like there's something in the big book which is like he failed to enlarge his spiritual life, right? And I think that's what a lot of us do is we kind of get to a point where we just stop. I think religion is really good at this. I think psychiatry and psychology is really good at this. Let's get you to a place, and then once people kind of get there, then they're done.
Yeah. Functioning.
Functioning, whatever
They
their
can coast a little
definition of
bit.
it. Yeah, and then people kind of stop, and then what happens is inevitably at some point these things come back up. You know,
Yeah.
This is like the people who you see are chronic relapsers on drugs, or people who have they kind of return slowly back to that pattern.
Yeah.
Because they got stable, but then never went and did this is the part where we're talking about the feel it to heal it,
Yeah.
right? Once you get to this stabilized place, like I'm thinking of people who have some time in recovery or have had some time in therapy or time in community, they get to a place where, okay, I have some stability, I have a sense of reality now. Now it's about, okay, when you're at that place, don't stop,
Yeah.
right? Like now when that uncomfortable feeling comes up, rather than running to the Netflix or the treadmill or the iPhone or the booty or whatever it is that you're going to not feel that. I think that's the instance we're talking about here, where we go, when you reach that place, now it's about really like feeling that. And even if you have a healthy coping mechanism, it's at that point, it's not helping you because you're not actually doing the feeling of it.
Well, and I think that if you plateau just when you start functioning, then at a certain point, all of those people turn and they're like, this is what I went through that for.
Yeah.
Like, this is why I got sober. Like,
It
this
runs
is
out of
why-
gas.
Yeah, it's only sustainable for so long before your spirit starts saying like, hey, there's something deeper.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will say to me like, I don't know why I have to think about this again. And it's like, it's because it's that meaningful. Like, you might be going through it 100 times, but it's because it matters that much.
Right.
It's not because it's like the same old shit.
Right.
It's that big of a deal in your life, you know?
Yeah.
It's so funny because, we're talking about this topic and it's so worth it but what we're talking about is really lifelong work. It's a change, a real change, like implementing a real change in your life. And I don't want to discourage people that are just trying to change their life by saying no, this is a lifelong process you're entering here. For this to have any kind of consistency or to any kind of real result, you have to change your life.
Yeah,
beyond the deflections.
There's the seekers, right?
Yeah.
There's those of us who are we know that there's something else, that there's something more. And if you're listening, you know who you are. And so if that means you're probably, if that's your thing, then you're probably keep running up against something and it's slowing you down. And I think I used to think, well, it's slowing me down, so I just got to get this out of the way.
Yeah.
But not realizing that the thing that's slowing me down is the thing that's going to get me where I need to go.
It's going to level you up.
But I got to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to deal with it. How do I get through this? What's the move? Because what got me here is not, you've come to another hurdle. Another phase.
Yeah, what gets you here is not necessarily going to be the same thing that gets you to the next, right?
Right.
Like you said something that really resonated, which is that here I am again. And I can't tell you how many times in the last 12 years I'm sitting in front of a coach, a therapist, a fucking shaman, a medicine doctor, everybody. And I'm like, I'm talking about this again. How many times am I going to bring this thing up? I become resentful of that thing, and I'm separating myself from that thing rather than understanding that that's a part of me that I need to acknowledge, honor in a sense, right?
You got to give it its respect because it's going to be with you forever. There's no light switch. Goodbye. There's no goodbye to
whatever. Crack is a pretty good light switch.
Yeah. Crack, yes, you can stop that.
Yeah.
That can change.
Yeah.
And all the other substances you can stop using. You see what I'm saying? But stopping that is the beginning of it all. It's even before step one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? After that, now you got to deal with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a process.
Yeah,
but it's
that's what
beautiful.
I
freaking love me now. I love where I am in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When we talk about the phases and the obstacles, because I'm a chronic relapser, right? And there was a lot of times man, I wish I would have did this sooner, or I wish I would have, things could have been changed if I would have not relapsed 5 quadrillion times before getting here in my life. But now when I look back, I said, dude, that was just me going through it, man. You know what I mean? And I thank God, God was there for me through all of that, and I just didn't stop and just go the other way and just engulf myself in that again. I was constantly trying to, something, I can't name it, but something was happening through every relapse that got me to get clean again, to relapse again, to get clean again. And that was just, and I don't regret that now. I'm in a place where I'm I'm okay, that all had some sort of purpose and meaning in my journey. You know what I mean?
Well, we've had people on the show that have been to 17 rehabs. I think the most I've heard is 21 rehabs. And
that's a lot.
Think, and you hear and then I'll hear from other people or family members that go, this is his 4th one. And I always go, well, I know someone that took 21.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could either be
Yeah.
really sad about that, or it could give you some hope, because
Mm-hmm.
21 treatment centers means not 21 times falling down.
Right.
It means
Absolutely.
22 times getting back up. That is an amazing individual right there.
Yeah.
To keep trying and then screwing it up and then trying, and I'm just saying screwing it up, but it's like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
that's tough, but they keep going back, and those
Yeah.
people end up becoming,
The
bru-
pillars.
Yeah.
They become the
Mm-hmm.
one because they've been through they know what's up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're so valuable to a community of newcomers, which this is really what this is all about.
Yeah.
So when that person can give you that story and relate to you, and like you can't really, you can't dope fiend your way talking to him. He's going to be with you. That person's going to resonate with you.
Yeah.
Very important.
Mm.
Yeah. It's not a complete thought, but when you were talking about thinking about your past self and being able to look at that guy and say, like, that was me, and I can see the ways that God was at work, and you're speaking about yourself with so much empathy. I feel like there's a relationship between the moment where we look back on ourselves with that empathy instead of judgment,
Yeah.
and the posture that we hold everybody else's journey with.
Yeah.
And it's like with the rigidity, looking at our past selves with so much judgment and criticism and that product thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I could have done this in less steps. I could have taken less time. That's all like product driven.
Or just really
But-
resenting and hating that person.
Yeah.
know?
But then being able to look at yourself with empathy, then I think those people hold the room's suffering or the room's self-work so differently.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but-
even when you talk, even when you're going through it and you're talking to someone that's made peace with their past selves like that, it just translates totally different. Totally different
It's like an
energetic
imprint.
exchange.
It's like an imprint or something.
Versus like there's something that doesn't work about like I'm gonna tell you all the right things so you don't do what I did, versus the like I'm here in your journey, man.
Right.
I hear it,
Yeah.
and I can tell you my journey, but you might be exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I recently got a new sponsor, and I met with him today, and I was, because I'm burned out, like I've done. It's like I don't need another freaking sermon. I don't need another therapy session. I mean, I need something new, something. And what's amazing to me is whatever God is, that connection was made, and here I am sitting with that person, who in a lot of ways is me. Is kind of how I sit with people, right? Because I noticed him in the weeds with me, no judgment, talking through everything, and leading me because he has experience. He's been through it. He understands, and that was such a new experience for me to really sit, because I've said to myself, like, I need me, because and in some ways, like, we are the ones who have to ultimately lead ourselves out, right?
Somebody that
Yeah.
speaks your same language, and
But when you find someone who speaks
Yeah.
that language, and I'm not talking in a general sense, I'm talking on that energetic,
Yeah. The
that-
vibe.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, I was talking to a friend about this topic, and we got to the concept what Buddhism kind of talks about with mindfulness, right? And so there's a story that I think illustrates it well, which is this interviewer goes to a Buddhist monk and says, what does a Buddhist do? And so the Buddhist monk says, we eat, we drink, we walk. And she says, well, I eat, I drink, I walk. What's the difference? And he said, when I eat, I know I'm eating. When I drink, I know I'm drinking.
Right.
And when I walk, I know I'm walking. And that mindfulness, that thing to be fully present in that moment, right? Regardless of the uncomfortable emotion, the anxiety, the depressive thoughts, but to actually be in that and still, and be really mindful of that. And then also getting mindful of where your body is and where you are. Like, I think that there's something to that. When we're talking about this, you can't heal what you don't feel, is that mindfulness concept. And I mean it more in like an Eastern Buddhist way, not in like a Western smart recovery thing. Like there's something there about the ability to sit in your suffering
Yeah.
and be okay with it and not judge it.
Yeah.
There's kind of a inherent respect for your experience. It's like, even if I'm just eating or drinking or walking, I respect the moment enough, and the moment's meaningful enough to be here
To
for
be
it.
there with it, right? Like to it
And
mean
so
you give it that's respect
It's a
instead of
sacred
just
quality.
yeah. There's something
Yeah.
to it. Pay attention to it.
Yeah, like Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, like he takes an hour to drink his tea. You know,
Damn.
Well, and even in
I don't know if
That
you've
tea
ever
is not
read or
hot.
listened to
when
any.
he
yeah.
takes his last
But
drink,
when
it's
Thich
not
Nhat
warm.
Hanh starts talking, you're
The
like,
people
you're
at
like,
the
you know
table.
it. Huh?
Just
Yeah, they're
watching.
like, bro,
The
we got a
waiter.
plane to
You
catch.
got a
Yeah.
row of cups there.
He's like,
Yeah.
Refill.
still sipping his tea.
Yeah.
You've been to the bathroom 4 times. You're like, Tick, we gotta go, bro. Like,
You're on a first name
we
basis.
got an Uber out
Making
here
me
that's
uncomfortable
been on
with
standby.
this little cup of tea, bro. Yeah.
It's actually that's the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That is.
Well, and even in Eastern tradition, there's different cups for different reasons. But one of my favorites are the handleless cups, because they don't believe you should be separated from the warmth of your tea. You should be aware when you're drinking
Damn.
your tea.
I mean, that's
So,
connection.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
So
Well, you
symbolic.
gotta do the thing.
But I mean,
That-
how
yeah.
often am I
Rabbit.
eating and going like this? I'm like
Yeah.
watching and I'm eating, right?
Yeah.
Or even like going to the bathroom. Like I saw this comedian was like, I haven't took a poop like without having my phone in 10 years. You know what I mean?
That's a whole thing. Like you know,
we're
life has changed
constantly
now,
like
man.
boom, 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 and we're
And
never
like,
really.
what are you looking at on your phone? You know, it's like
yeah,
half of the
wouldn't you like to
time,
know?
well, half of the time it's someone
You
telling you
wouldn't
all
be
the
sitting here
reasons.
if you knew.
Yeah.
Kara.
God. Half the time it's someone saying like, this is why you should be stressed.
Yeah.
Or like, this is all the stuff you need to think about. Or this is all the stuff you should feel bad about.
Oh my gosh,
It's crazy.
Yeah, it
It's
is
crazy.
Yeah.
My favorite Buddhist story I got from King of the Hill. I don't know if anyone else is a King of the Hill fan. Giant fan.
I love these two, this King of the Hill and
Yes.
and the Buddha.
Yes.
Thich Nhat Hanh.
But yeah, there's an episode where Hank recounts a Buddhist story about a guy that's running from a tiger, and he comes to the edge of a cliff, and the tiger's behind him, and he really doesn't have any choice but to jump off the cliff. And on his way down, he ends up catching this branch. Have y'all heard this? Oh, he catches a branch. And so he's hanging from the branch, and he looks up, and he sees the tiger above him, and he looks down, and there's also a tiger below him. And so either way is not good.
It's not a good
And then,
deal. Yeah. it's
yeah,
gonna be
but
tough.
on the branch is the most beautiful, perfect strawberry he's ever seen. And he plucks the strawberry from the branch, and he eats it. And he says, this is so good. And it's this idea, like, in the middle of a imminent doom, still being present enough to not miss this strawberry. Hank tells it
That's deep.
much better than
No,
me.
I like
Yeah.
that.
I
No,
do.
I
get
wish you
that.
could do that voice.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like that's we're constantly wanting to get out of whatever, and I think that's where the self-help stuff kind of starts to be less helpful because my dad lives alone in Florida, and every time he goes home to be back, he's happy to be back in his place, and he lives right by a natural spring, and
Yeah.
he gets to ride his bike, and it's quiet, and he loves it for a couple days, and then it's like that anxiety and that loneliness hits him.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, and I said maybe this anxiety and this depression is not that something's wrong, or maybe it's just telling you like, hey, maybe it's time to move closer to family. Like maybe the anxiety isn't like what's wrong.
Right.
The anxiety is what's right.
It's
and
giving you the warning.
it's saying,
Hey, you gotta look. This. We gotta change this up. We gotta do something. with this,
Absolutely.
you know.
yeah. But if you never feel it, or you go to, and I'm not saying he's doing this, but like, and you go to like an anxiety medication because I'm anxious.
Right.
Now I don't feel as anxious, but you didn't change the thing that anxiety was trying to tell you. Like, hey, something's wrong with the way we're living. It's no longer aligned with us, values-wise or spiritually or in our soul. It worked for a while, but now it's not working.
Yeah.
It's time to switch it up. But so many of us are so scared to switch it up. So instead we'll go, let's get a book or a pill or a new coping mechanism
Yeah.
rather than addressing like
Yeah.
maybe what really it is. And sometimes it could be as easy as you just need to change your address.
Yeah.
Bro, that's beautiful what you said, because just think about that. Like the warning, like, all feelings and all emotions and all these things, we've got to give a tremendous amount of respect to all those things, regardless of how like bad it makes you feel or something like that, right? Because there's something in there that's like there's a message in the bottle and all these things, right? And it is just like you said to your dad. Let's think why you're feeling this way, instead of trying to stop it from feeling. Stop from feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I could, take a Xanax because I'm anxiety ridden, right? But if I'm not dealing with it, you're missing the message. It could be like, hey, I think you need to change this. Don't you think you need to might change this part of your life? Maybe get more of a connection somewhere else. Maybe it's time to leave. Maybe it's time to do this. Whatever that message is, if you never give it the moment to translate to you, then you're missing. You're losing the reason of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why are you so sad right now? I don't know, but I'm I'm eating Adderall now, so I'm able
So
to
not
go
so
to
sad.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I think there's also to the message of the story of Jesus, which is it's through the suffering, right?
Amen.
Like you have to descend before you ascend, right?
Amen. Right.
And I think a lot of us want to just, do like a little speed bump, and then we're up.
Yeah.
And we want to hit that mountaintop. And I think we miss what that message is saying. Like there has to be like an actual dissension into these depths. To be
That's
able
where
to really,
everybody's
truly-
scared to go.
And we all are,
Yeah.
like all of us. No one wants to really. That's why I started like, here's something we know no one really wants to do.
Yeah.
But when you understand the value of really experiencing it, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys think that that's true? Like that suffering is. I want to say maybe. Do you think it's true that suffering is necessary for true growth and change?
I think that suffering is inevitable. And so it's
Put
just,
that on a shirt.
It's because I mean, there's so many different philosophies that can go back and forth about, who puts suffering in motion and do you call it upon yourself, and like all these different things that I think are painting with too broad a brush for me to be able to have a lot of clarity on. It's like so many circumstances are different, but we do know that suffering is inevitable. And I think about the difference between suffering breaking us down in a way that closes us off, and suffering breaking us open in a way that still hurts, but it's more open, and you experience more of life, and you don't hit that same wall of like, what am I doing here? And I even think like just in a simple, I've been, because of changing the work and realigning life and the people that are in my life and gratitude and self-work and all these things, like I feel like I'm much more in the moment than I used to be. But even when I'm with my nieces, it's like that. It's everything in life at the same time, where I'm present with them and I'm like, whoa, they're so beautiful and I love them so much. And I'm also sad that they grow up every day and that I can't stay here forever.
Yeah.
And, I start thinking about the future, the things that are true. And having to come back home and all that, but it's everything at once. It's everything embedded, but it leads me back to really be here now, present.
Yeah.
Whereas, years ago, I probably would have made sure that time together was going the best that it could, and that I was showing up and checking all those boxes, but
Oh, wow.
I wasn't feeling like
Yeah.
that. And some of that, I think, is just life and going through grief and saying goodbye to people and all of that. But I'm so thankful. I would much rather be with my nieces and look at them and be like, they're so beautiful and this time is so limited and I don't want to miss it. I don't want to be on my phone. But I'm aware of that because of heartbreak and because of the way that time moves and the inevitability of all of it.
Yeah.
Rather than just making sure that I'm checking the boxes for being a good
Everybody's here at 5. Okay, cool. 5
You
o'clock.
know?
All right. Oh, good to see you. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
And then because of that, not to go off on a whole like kids journey, but I learn every single time I'm with them, I learn something about their world that I could not if my head was somewhere else. Because the way they look at things is so ground level and specific, and that childhood lens. But I think every circumstance is like that. With mindfulness, you realize that there's all this wisdom embedded in the grief and the suffering and the doing the hard thing and all of that. And even some of the existential stuff that's suffering. It's like nothing really happened. I just know that I'm going to die.
Right. Yeah.
And that sometimes that's distressing on bad days, and sometimes that's distressing on good days. It's like, man, this is sweet.
Yeah.
Like, we could do this for a lot longer. This is really sweet.
Yeah.
I was talking to Christian not too long ago, and I was like, we were talking about, like kind of almost on this same subject matter, right? And I told him, I told a client, I was like, listen, man, we're all gonna die, all right? There's no escaping it, all right? So let's rewind and just keep that with you, and let's talk about today, all right?
Yeah. Memento mori.
And it's a little bit important. But today is an important day for you and I.
Yeah. Because
Let's make something of it. all
Yeah.
right? Because, sooner or later,
Yeah.
we're out of here, baby. So let's try to make something of this.
Well, yeah, and that's like,
I love your rendition of Memento Mori. Cut through
what?
Yeah.
You cut through all the philosophical bullshit, and you're
Let's
like,
get to,
this
like, you're gonna
is-
die.
this is it.
Well, I went to a funeral for a guy, and he made his video. He put together his own slideshow for his funeral.
I've seen those. They're pretty cool. That's
Yeah,
pretty wild.
I keep telling myself I want to do a podcast
Well,
that you play. It's just me, and I'm in front of the camera, and it's like, okay. And then every year I kind of update it, or every year kind of update
Yeah.
it. Like, started off like, hey, this is awkward. I'm here, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I know, and
yeah.
and kind of go into that, because it is true. Like, that is like, I don't know how we got to dying.
Yeah, well,
I just got an email
It's
from my
hard.
seminary that they're offering a new course on death and dying.
I can never look at David. I have to close this up.
No, it's true. Man.
Another thing I want to say about that mindfulness, right? Like, of trying to be present, right? Because what I do usually is like, I'm doing the thing, and then I go, oh, look at me, being so mindful. And that, as soon as I do that, I'm no longer mindful, because I become the observer
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to pull yourself back into that present moment. But I do,
You're battling your ego right there.
Yeah.
By looking at yourself and noticing it,
Yeah.
you're already in a battle with your ego.
Yeah, I'm already
Yeah.
out of the. And this is the thing, like, I think it's important for people who are continuing on this path is to know that, like, we can do hard things, right? And, I have a friend who was recently got incarcerated and got out and this and that, and then is like, oh, today I'm 7 months sober. I'm like, holy shit. Like, you just went through this whole thing, and you didn't eat. Like, it's a good excuse to have a beer when you got out. You know what I
Hell
mean?
yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna blame you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but he didn't. He chose to continue on this path, and I think, like, we don't know the hard things that we can do, and
Yeah.
especially like this internal stuff. And the other thing I think is important is, because I'm sitting with, counselors, and and I know a lot of people who listen also work with people, right, through 12-step stuff, and that's such an important piece to this. I think, to having the ability to not just feel it, but also have somebody to
Right.
express that with and reflect that back and forth with, right?
Absolutely. Like that, nothing inspires me more. And I think this is the reason why God knew that this was the type of work I've got to do, because the therapeutic value is always twice-fold on me. Because when I get to watch somebody go through something and, like, have that determination or have that understanding, like, going to do this again is ruining me. Like, regardless of how I feel, I'm going to keep doing this. and going through that process and like being there for them when they're talking about they're struggling or they're anxious or, I mean, when we did the RSAT thing, I'm getting people from incarceration, and then we're transitioning into a whole different part of like we're really dealing with life on life terms. We're reintegrating back into life, and like what all that to have like a front row seat to what that looks like and what they face. I mean, and having more than just one person. I mean, there's a lot of different things people deal with, man, and like they're just walking out in the street again. They just got a bed to go lay in, and all this stuff comes. And when I see people deal with life in a good way, in a productive way for them, through that part of their life, it's so like inspiring to see people like really go through that and like still make the right decisions, or still have the thought process of like, I don't want to go, even though this is crazy, I'm not going to go back to the beginning of this. Is like why I love my career, man. So that inspiration is huge. And do you mind if I go back on what we were talking about just a minute ago when you were talking about suffering, right? I know that like where I am today, okay, and what I appreciate and what I pay attention to and like what like warms my heart and like what means something to me today, I would not probably give two shits about a lot of that stuff if I didn't go through the bad stuff or the suffering stuff that I went through before. So that like gives that great reason. I'm so interested in, my youngest daughter right now, what she has to say, how she says it, how she feels, her thought process. And like, I'm just not the kind of person, if I didn't have the suffering or the stuff that I've been through in life to like put it in my mind that this is important, this is valuable time. Like, let me pay attention more to this. And not only that, as I grow this like intense like interest and love and like gratefulness for, these little moments that I have, with my wife, with my other children, with my friends, like being here with you guys, like being able to do this shit right here is crazy to me. But it doesn't really, there's a reason why it means so much to me. It's all because of what I've been through, not because I'm just here right now and like, this is it, so the suffering and the things that you go through have deep meaning. Just because they were tough means more good now, if that makes any sense.
No, there's things in my life that I never wanted to face and that I faced over last year. And the result of that is me being present and going, oh, shit. Like, my kids played a game on the way home. My kids are 23, 17, and 16. And they're playing this game in the back seat about, I don't know, guessing a number. And they were both trying to guess the number. And it was just, I couldn't understand the game. But they sat in the car and just played this game, the three of them. And I'm sitting there just listening, and then traffic got really bad. But I was like listening to this game. Like, you guys want to play? And I said, no, I'm actually having fun just listening to you guys play this game. Because they were so there, just there. And
doing it.
But if I hadn't gone through what I went through in this last year, I would have been more concerned with the traffic or what time it was or what I was getting out of this or whatever, right? Like, but I was actually able to be there and listen to them. And the night before, they all three were hanging out, and I was trying to go to sleep. And I know that there would have been a time when I would have been like, shut the up, I'm trying to go to bed. But I was able to sit there and listen to them and go, oh, listen to that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, that's not always going to be the case, that I can hear them down the hall, right? There'll be a moment when I have to call them to hear them, right? And I wasn't thinking that, but I was just really hearing them and going, that is a beautiful sound to fall asleep to, is my children, pretty much grown, but still kicking it and laughing, right? And to your point, like, but I wouldn't have come to that place if I didn't face and address and go through some shit.
Go through something.
And I want to just, there's layers, right? Like, 'cause sometimes I can talk about these things and it sounds like I'm like really jacked up, but there's layers to this, right? And I feel like on a lot of levels, things are amazing, but when you start to really get into some of this stuff, and there's these false beliefs that we have, this old stuff that's so wired into us that we don't even realize it's who we are until we face something that makes us suffer, and we go, oh, I got to look at this now. Because I'm not
Yeah.
looking at it unless I got to look at it.
Right.
That's the reality.
That's it.
If I can
That's why it's
Netflix
so
it away,
essential.
yeah,
That's why the suffering's so essential.
that's why it's
You know,
essential.
when are you going to be in a place where you're like, okay, I'll be open-minded, and you know what? I'll do it.
Okay, fine.
Okay, I got it. I'll do it. Whatever. You got to come from somewhere
Yeah.
to decide to do that. You know what I mean? If you're just coasting, you're just going to keep coasting, man.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that emotion combo pack that you described is something that you only get from experience. That gratitude, presence, kind of a little bit bittersweet because of the brevity, like knowing that things change.
Yeah.
But that combination, there's something, and when someone else is in that place, without saying anything, you feel it too. When someone's that present and kind of recognizing, being present in the moment, but then also recognizing how it weaves into the longer span of time, you feel it. And I think to me it translates as feeling really loved when somebody's
Ultimately,
in
that's
that
it.
frequency. It's like, wow, this space, this sacred space matters to them that much that they're in that kind of
Yeah.
emotional combo pack.
Well, like you described, like how special, watching your nieces and like being so in that moment, and so much so that you don't want it to end, right? That's a very special feeling, okay? But, when you talk about Eastern and Western, how life is lived, it's like that should be the most natural thing. You see these beautiful, innocent kids playing, but you have to get there in this society to appreciate that instead of it just being this instinctual watching. You have to, there's value and appreciation in that we have to learn that maybe living in this world on this side of the mountain takes a little bit more effort to do. Because like you think about like mindfulness, right? Like I watch my wife, she's like 120 on the keyboard a minute. She's nice with it, right? Okay. And if she knows what she's putting on the keyboard, she can have a total conversation with me while she's like, hey, honey, are you going to the store? Are you going to get that? What time does Olive get home? And she's like doing 120 and I'm just like,
You ever look and make sure it's not just AGFTTT?
ABBB. She just trying to show off.
You're like, you really type good. Wait, what are you writing?
But she even hits the backspace with like vicious speed, like like backspace, go all the way back and like rewrite it. But while having a whole conversation with me, so like to me that's amazing. But we're promoted, like we are raised to live that way
All the time.
all the time. Like we are raised to like the more we can like get our mind somewhere
Optimize.
else and get our body doing something else.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of mindfulness. But that's how we're trained in this society to be productive. If you can do this and that, like if your hands can like put this thing together and you can like say something in the microphone while you're doing that, oh my God, he's a genius.
Right.
He's a great multitasker. And that's why I think meditation, when you think about meditation and mindfulness, when you introduce that to somebody like us that's just being introduced to it, it's like, oh, what do you mean I got to connect my mind and realize what my breaths are, realize what my feet feel like, my legs, like becoming like in tune to that is like, there's such a disconnect that reconnecting to that is a real issue for people over here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and the step even before that is sometimes you have to drop all of the denial. It's like before you could even step into your body, which might not feel great, you also have to stop pushing up against all this stuff that you
Been kind of like,
or like drop all the mental gymnastics that have been holding your whole reality up.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
You created a whole narrative that doesn't fit as soon as you're in your body.
Right.
And the high functioning version of that is like when you've created a whole narrative to convince yourself that everything's fine because it kind of all looks fine, but then you get mindful and you're like, all of this feels really bad.
Damn.
But
Everything is
ruins
fine.
your.
Everything is fine. Documentary. How to
Yeah.
plug
Everything is
that.
fine.
The real
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
It's
That's a good
about
one.
that.
Yeah. It ruins the illusion. And then
That's a
you
good way to
realize,
say it.
oh, it's a freaking illusion. And I feel like I've gotten there in some ways because everything I've ever wanted, I've gotten, right? Like I wanted to get money. Okay, I got money. I wanted to be in entertainment. Got entertainment. I want to be heard. My music be heard by millions. Got that. Like Want to start a nonprofit? Got that. Want to do a show? Got that.
Right.
And at the end of all the things getting them, I'm still like, and so the allure of get that is gone.
Yeah.
And I judge myself for that, right? Oh, something's wrong with me. The fire isn't there. The passion isn't there. And then sitting and going through things, I realized, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Like maybe right now, for what it is, I'm just in a place where I'm like, there's not a next thing, right? Because the allure of the next thing is I'm kind of like got hip to the game of that.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. Like, could I go do that? Yeah, I could probably, but I got to do a bunch of other stuff, and I got to do this because I know the path. And the allure of what's next is not as enticing as it used to be. Maybe that's age, maybe that's growth,
Wisdom.
maybe that's maturity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but I do think that there's a societal judgment on that. Like,
Keep getting the bag. Keep
Yeah.
going.
yeah,
Keep getting the next thing. What's the next thing?
right.
Well, I think that sometimes there's a synchronistic timing that happens when we're prevented from making giant changes or strides or huge goals because it's like, go home. Like there's
For real.
there's people there that love you,
Yeah,
and or like take your foot off the gas for a second because you're in the last little bit of a season that's about to turn, you know? And so I think sometimes at least for me, the timing feels a little synchronistic, where it's like a bunch of stability, but not a lot of striving. But then when I turn back into my internal world or my family, I'm like, man, this is the perfect timing so that I can be present in a different area. And then I think that there's a time for all of that. It's like there's something in us that wants to expand and create and grow and strive and you know, even like chasing that dopamine and all of that isn't inherently bad,
right.
but at the cost of what? Like missing so much. And so it's kind of, I think of it like working on a big painting. One of my painting teachers said, like, you know a good artist because when they're working on a painting, the whole thing looks like it's getting worked on. They don't go straight in on the, you know, details of the eye. They're working on every edge of the painting at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, and using a lot of different size brushes kind of at the same time. And I think about life that way, where it's like, okay, like, you know, work's blocked in a little bit, home's blocked in a little bit, taking care of health is there, is like being present, but also like blocking out time where I'm forcing myself to think about future and dream building and all of that kind of stuff, because I think that's important too. But then when you step back, it's like, wow, this is starting to be a really well-rounded picture. And because I can see what it is well-rounded, I can understand where it's going in a different way versus, you know, getting so fussed up on this one little part. And then you stand back and you're like, what have I been doing? Like, they're only a quarter size of this painting has been worked on,
Right.
you know? And so, but and when you watch artists do that or like musicians do that, there's a different energy to it and it feels better.
Right.
See, that's 2.0.
And we just don't know what that, a lot of times, and like the crowd feels it or the person looking feels it, but we don't know what to call it. It's like, man, that guy's a master, and it just feels like he carries it differently.
Yeah.
It's not like this giant, like,
It's
struggle.
fluid. It's flowy. It's like a guru type presence of somebody. You're like watching like somebody really doing it, rather than somebody just.
Yeah.
I get really nervous when people are like I get like I always have like a little bit of a fear of ambition, because when I see people in that motion, it just kind of like it just weighs on me kind of heavy, because I just know, you know, when you're just running and gunning, you don't see nothing else, and you're just trying to get there, and like, you know, especially in recovery. When somebody's running and gunning for that, you're just like, oh man, please, let's synchronize. Like what you say, hey, can we see the whole picture? Let's try to paint it. But they're just like a dart. You know, they're just darting for the freaking bullseye like every single day. I'm like, bro.
Thomas Merton says the end of ambition is the beginning of happiness.
Amen, dude.
I quoted that to somebody, and they did not like that quote.
No, I can
They
see
did
why.
not like-
Like it
I can
struck
see
a little
why
chord.
because no, I can see why they're like watching Dwayne Johnson, like The Rock every morning, and getting like, that's it,
That's
Yeah.
it.
gotta go kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Oh, yeah.
judgmental of that. I mean, but
It's like
I
there's a
don't like
time
it.
for David Goggins and there's a time for Stigma.
Yeah.
It's like, but you can't be David Goggins every day.
no, dude.
Only David Goggins could be David Goggins.
That's it.
every day.
He's that guy.
Yeah.
Freaky.
All right. So as we're rounding this and landing this, I feel like there's a question I want to ask you too while you're here. Because we know suffering there's an inherent value to suffering. And much of the work that you do is to help alleviate suffering in some ways, right? How do you balance that, right? And Ram Dass says that you have a moral obligation to not get in the way of someone's suffering because the suffering will produce the fruit, right? And, I'm a coach. You guys are counselors. A lot of what our life is sitting with somebody who's saying, I'm suffering in this way, and how do I not, right? So how do you deal with that or live in that tension as healers, I would say, to say, okay, the suffering is necessary at some level, but, what do you guys do with that?
I can go. Yeah. Well, the first
I
thing
love how
that
she's just ready to answer that question.
well, I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I think it depends on what people are going through too, and the whole idea of like, if you're a therapist and you take anything home with you, then it's wrong. It's like if these experiences don't change you on some level, then I think that there's something wrong with that. But I think of my friend, the late Terry Campbell. I don't know if y'all knew Terry, but a lot of people in the recovery community knew him really well. But I got to work at Twin Lakes with him when I first moved back to Atlanta, and really cool, really cool guy. But he had a ton of sobriety, and his journey was like wild. But one of the things that struck me is like when someone would say like, I'm leaving here, I'm gonna AMA, like I'm, it's middle of the night, like I'm walking out the doors, and he'd be like, yeah, it's your journey, man.
Yeah.
I love you. And at first when I met him, I thought, I kind of took it as being a little bit flippant. Like I felt like he maybe was burned out or something. Or it's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, but he wasn't saying that. And he taught me through his actions that it was on the back of, decades and decades of experience where he really meant it. Just like, this is your journey. Like, I'm not going to control it, but I love you.
Right.
And if you called him or if you needed him to pull up, he was always there. But again, that posture, he was never like pacing angry with someone or seeing the worst in someone because they weren't doing what he wanted them to do based on his plan for them. And so he held it with a different energy that made it look almost too easy.
Yeah.
But it taught me a lot seeing that every day. And I don't always know. I don't have a clear answer for, our role in other people's suffering. I think it kind of depends. If it's systemic suffering and there's a place for advocacy, that's so much different than when someone is kind of putting themselves through a little bit of a fire that maybe their spirit needs in the long run. Or the things that happen that are outside of all of our control, but kind of a natural part of the life that we just don't really want to look at or talk about, death and loss and change and all of that. But at the very baseline, I want people to look back on those chapters and not be able to say that they were alone in it. And not be able to say that, that was the doorway into a life of isolation or further disconnect from community. Because I know for sure that just makes it worse.
Right.
That'll turn pain into suffering or suffering into like torture.
Yeah.
And so it gets tricky though. In mental health, we're encountering a lot of suffering that I think is a little bit systemic based, and there is a part to kind of get in the ring in there with them and be like, I got to push back on some of this with you, man. Like,
right.
But that's a lot different than I think what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Beat that answer, David.
No, I think
all that and
well.
David always
Now
has a
that you
good
said
answer.
that, no, I think I can't tell you how many times that I will sit and I'll brainstorm with people under like really serious situations, right? And we can brainstorm and come up with like something that sounds like, oh, this is going to be a good thing. What do you think? And they go, yeah, this is, and then they come back the next week, and none of that takes place, right? And that happens a lot. And or I'll talk with like a family, and like what should I do? And I'll give them like ideas, and I always say, but you know what, man, I say, listen, we're talking really black and white, and life is so gray. That regardless of what you guys do, what it comes out of this, I am going to be there for you next week. Come check it out, and we'll hit it again. And I never like, it's never like do you have to do this? It's always like, what do you think about this? Or, how do you think this works out for you? And like, we really build a relationship in the brainstorming aspect of like what could possibly work out the best for you. Not even the right thing to do. What works out for you the best way? Right. And a lot of times it doesn't happen. They come see me next week, and we kind of like maybe got to start over, talk about it again, figure out new things. But I really want everybody that I deal with to know, regardless, I'm rocking out with you, no matter what happens. I'm not gonna come at you judgmentally. I'm not gonna do an "I told you so." I'm not gonna do anything like that. We're just gonna start, and next week is next week, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's like the hood answer of her answer.
Is it? Was it really?
Or like hers was college level, and yours
Mine
was
was
like grade school.
Mine was 8th grade. We're gonna be cool. We're gonna be cool next week.
Well, what I'm
But
saying though.
honestly,
Okay.
I feel like that energy, like we were talking about, there's something about that. We were talking about Mike Frederickson before the show started, and that came up, that energy of like,
Yeah.
nothing's gonna scare him away.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna make him feel like change how he acts towards you.
Right. And
It's
there's
like
no
he shows
judgment,
up
bro.
as him all the time, consistently, regardless. And it creates that, like, I don't know, to me it feels kind of like an uncle energy. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Grandpa energy,
Yeah.
pawpaw energy.
Yeah.
Where it's like, even if I messed it all up, like,
Come on
Pawpaw's
over here,
still-
clumsy ball. Come on back now.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that.
I had an experience recently, to answer my own question, is thanks for asking.
Yeah.
What I thought.
Christian, what would you do in these
Yeah.
situations?
Somebody asked for help, and they asked for specific help. And I'm like, this is a much bigger problem. But I'm like, they didn't ask for that help. They asked for this help.
Yeah.
And was like internally going, but I answered the help they asked for.
Smart.
And it was hard to do. But as I kind of just answered that and watched, I saw and I went, oh yeah, I'm going to get in the way of their suffering if I try and solve this problem for them.
Yeah.
And that's when I saw what Ram Dass meant, which is like, you have a moral obligation not to get in the way. But when they asked for that help, I was there to give the help. And if they asked for help in a different way, if I can, I want to give that help, right? And I remember when I did coaching training, the trainer was like, it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of coach you are and how you deal with your codependency. And I'm like, damn, like she freaking saw it, you know what I mean? Like, because it's hard to be a coach and be that, right?
Yeah.
Because I have to hold that tension of like knowing the path because I have empirical evidence of the path, right? And allowing someone to find that, or what they call like that golden shovel, right? It's like trying to just ask the questions, ask questions. Because when somebody finds the answer themselves, it's much more profound than if I give them the answer. If I give them the answer, they're probably going to deny it, right?
Yeah.
But if they can find the answer themselves, right, then it'll lead to transformation for them. Yeah.
That's the trickiest part about working with youth, is because I think as talking with parents, it's the parent's nature and inclination to say, I'm going to take this suffering from you.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to save you from falling.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, that's the experience, that's the lesson. Like, are you there when they fall, but they lift their eyes back up and want to know that you're still on the sidelines kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then, like what your coach said, it's like am I trying to take your suffering from you because it'll make me feel better? Because
Right.
I'm
No,
having a hard time.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
That's the reason. You want them to do better,
Yeah.
and you think you got, you got that golden ticket. Well, try this,
Yeah.
and walk off. That never works.
Yeah.
Okay, is this my camera right here, Zach? Is this my camera right here?
That's your
This right, can you put it on me real quick? All right. You got me? All right.
I like the pointy
Check this
finger.
out. For all the folks that are like in service work or doing psychology and counseling and life coaching and everything, this is a word of advice. You are not problem solvers, and you are not fixers. If you get to a place where you can carve in a little circle where there's trust and talking and interaction and you're seeing like this with each other, then you're doing your job.
Wow. That's,
Don't solve nobody's shit. They got to go through that. You got to be there for them.
Nice.
All right.
Look at you, so bold now.
I had to, man. Zach, camera, thank you.
is the
I've been
point.
doing this for a minute. You know what I'm saying? I've been doing this for a little while.
That's
Thank you guys
true.
for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm sure we got some good stuff out of this. Thank you to Raleigh for joining the show.
Oh my gosh, that was so.
Yeah, that was like
so real.
Thank you to Zach and Zach for hanging out with us. It means a
The
lot.
Zacks.
Yeah, it means
Thank
a lot
you
to
guys
see
so
you
much.
guys every week. And thank you to Leslie for listening. Yeah,
Cool.
this
Kara,
has
it was
been the
awesome.
Most I Show.
Yeah, it's
Like,
always cool to
another
hang
thing,
with
these
y'all.
are my peeps, so this is the best part of my week because I get to hang out with my people. So, kudos to me.
Yeah. Peace. Thanks for listening.
What do you think?
Your reflexes are so good. That mic drop, did you? Oh, God.
This one always does like this.
Man, I just love y'all.